So, welcome to the Lakeland Rotary Club. Y'all, it is the 51st week of the Rotary year. Can you believe it? And I will call on Amanda Walls for our invocation and pledge. Amanda?
Thank you, President Carroll. Let's bow our heads. Sovereign God, we give thanks to you for peace and refuge, beauty and joy, inspiration and renewal, acceptance and belonging. Let us experience these simple blessings in our lives, and let us work to bring them to others through words and deeds that reflect your light. We pray these things because of our love for you and our trust in you. Help us as Rotarians to be your peace throughout the world. Amen.
Amen.
And the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America
and
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with
liberty and justice
for all.
And the four-way test of the things we think,
say, or do.
Is it the truth? Is it fair
to all concerned?
Will it build
Goodwill and better
friendships?
Will it be
beneficial to all concerned? Thank you, Amanda. Okay, guest. If someone has a guest, or if you are a guest, just unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please.
Carol, my son might be jumping in the meeting to hear Grady.
Okay.
So if you see Nicholas Coso come on, just let him in.
Okay. All right. I hope he can.
Carol, this is Debbie Burdett. I have Belinda Kramer. She's our marketing manager with the Early Learning Coalition. She's joining in today.
Great. I think that's Belinda's second meeting. Welcome back,
Yes.
Belinda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great.
And this is Deborah Boynton, back again this week. Hey, everybody.
Great.
Hey, Deborah.
And I also invited a couple of club members from Rotary of Auburndale to join on. So you might see Mike Brynjolfsson.
And what was the second person?
Mike Brynjolfsson.
Uh-huh.
So anyways, their club's not meeting yet, so he might jump on.
Okay, great. Any other guests, visiting Rotarians? Okay, we've got some happy dollars.
Hi, President Carroll. I have some happy dollars. It's Brenda.
Oh, hey, Brenda, go ahead.
I think most of you know I had to miss a meeting 2 weeks ago because my dad was suddenly taken to the hospital, and he had severe chest pain, shortness of breath, and he was in the hospital for 3 to 4 days. But thankfully this week we were able to find out what's going on. It's something that the doctors say is minimal and can be taken care of with a quick outpatient procedure. So we're going to be doing that pretty soon.
Wonderful. Yeah, you were missed. But I'm glad he's okay.
This is Arletta. I have a happy dollar.
Okay.
Wanted to thank a handful of fellow Rotarians for support on Sunday, Flag Day. The ISO had their first concert since mid-March. And we partnered with our great friends, Rebecca Fortin over at the Florida Air Museum at Sun and Fun. And we did a Flag Day concert with a brass quintet. We only offered 50 tickets. We sold about 32, and we did a lot of patriotic music, and we had wonderful Rotarian support. So I'm very
that's great.
that. Yeah.
Great. Glad to hear it. Somebody else had a happy dollar. Go ahead and speak up.
Happy dollar. The Rotary Convention starts Saturday, the 20th. It's virtual. It's free.
So it's free. I've wondered that. I've been getting the emails.
Yeah, and they have an interesting breakout sessions and a lot of interesting things. And if you've never been to one, this is your opportunity. This is it.
Mark, do you know if they're going to have some of those fabulous entertainment groups that they have had it been live? And the keynote speakers,
They have
the opening session.
The opening sessions, they definitely have keynote speakers.
Yeah,
I
the
don't
keynote
know who
speakers
they
are awesome.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
So.
Well, everybody, I encourage you to go on, and when you're getting those emails, just go on and look at the agenda and pick, particularly the keynote speakers. They are really, really good. So if you have an opportunity, thanks for sharing that. I didn't know it was free. That's wonderful. Other happy dollars?
Joel Ivy has to watch the whole thing.
And who does he report to?
That's something we vote on.
Okay. We're not kicking you out. Doesn't matter what you do, Joel.
President Carroll, can I use this opportunity to talk about the mega pantry real quick?
Yes, absolutely.
I'd like to do this under happy dollars. We kicked off the very first mega pantry at the former church at the mall, the Lakes Church now. They had a tent set up out back. Thank you to Wes and Dr. Mel for showing up. Mel brought her daughter, thankfully, because we needed all the help that we could get. We gave away a lot of food. It wasn't as much as we thought it was going to be, so it was a slow crowd, and I think it's just slow getting the word out. But we had a great time. It was good camaraderie. There were volunteers from Boring Business Systems, Visti, a couple of other people just volunteered individually. So we were probably about 10 people short of where we wanted to be. So if our Rotarians can sign on and help us out, there's going to be 3 more each Monday. The next 3 Mondays, so there's plenty of opportunities to help. So get online and sign up. I posted a link on Facebook as well. So had a good time, and thanks for everybody that participated.
Okay, that's great. The shift was from 3:30 to 7. Is that correct?
That's correct. We actually had shut down just a little bit early. We're running 2 lanes, and we shut one of the lanes down, and that was the one that I was in. So I got to go home about 6.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question, because for someone who can't get away from work at 3:30, is it possible to come at 5 and still join in?
Trust me, we would have taken anything we could get because we were getting pretty worn out by then.
Okay, yeah, because you can tag team even if you
Yes.
couldn't do the whole 3.5 hour shift, you can, share it with somebody.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They're bringing boxes already made up. All you got to do is grab a box and stick it in the car. It's about as simple as that.
Yeah, okay, great. All right.
There was good television coverage of it too.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. All right. Any other happy dollars? Thank you, President-elect Joel, for that update. Anybody else with a happy dollar? Okay, we have a few announcements. First of all, dues are due. So you should have gotten an email with your invoice. If you have not, then just let us know and we'll make sure we got your right email address and scan it to you. We'll mail it, whatever it takes. But the dues are due really by the end of the month, by July 1st. So you can pay online. I think Beth has actually even sent out a link to make it as easy as possible. So
Chuck, Dan will set up a link, and all you have to go in is just hit it. It goes straight to Square and gets reported. So it's super easy.
super duper. Okay, thank you. Okay, we've already had our Feeding Tampa Bay project update. Kids packing event, just a reminder, it is this Thursday. We got 2 shifts, a morning shift and an afternoon shift, and y'all have met the challenge, and all the slots are filled. So just if you signed up for that, just remember to show up. The district town hall meeting, the 3rd one, is tonight at 6. So it's free. You do not have to register. So just join on that Zoom link if you're interested in attending that. And a reminder to keep sending that lunch money in. Y'all are doing great about that. We've saved, each of us have saved $168 in lunch money since we couldn't meet in person, which makes me kind of sad because that means that we have not been together in 14 weeks. Seems like a long, long time. Okay, one of my most fun things to do at these meetings is induct new members. And even though we are meeting virtually, we continue to grow, and I have the pleasure of inducting 3 new members today. Our first is David Goldstein. David is a rabbi at Temple Emmanuel in Lakeland, where he's been for the last 4 years. But he's been a rabbi for 43 years. David is a graduate of the University of Berlin, and I probably mispronounced that. I'm sorry, David, in Israel. I am sorry. There's some kind of pronunciation challenge every week. He is a strong proponent for Israel and has taught numerous classes about Israel's past and present. Wherever David lives, he is extensively involved with community organizations serving the homeless and abused. Welcome, David. And David's sponsor is our incoming district governor, Mark Skolnick. Our next new member is Lucas Martin. Lucas is already a Rotarian. He's transferring to us from the Christina Club, where he was a past president. Lucas's hometown had 12 people in it, and I don't know how many of those were his family members, so I'm sure in his member profile he'll tell us all about that. He's a vice president of Flora Lawn and is a horticulturalist. He is a Mizzou graduate, so Shane Glory, you have some company now. Lucas is a graduate of Leadership Lakeland Class 35 and loves spending time golfing or playing baseball with his son. Welcome, Lucas. We have Kim Esposito. Kim's sponsor is Johnny Tyler. Kim grew up in Lakeland and she has 2 grown children of whom she is very proud. She's a manager of many early childhood education before and after school programs throughout Polk County. Kim is also part of a medical rejuvenation spa by MD. She's a 3-time cancer survivor who does not take life for granted. Kim strives every day to live a life of truth, justice, loyalty, kindness, and love for all. Welcome, Kim. David, Lucas, and Kim, it is my pleasure to welcome you into the Lakeland Rotary Club. You are joining the oldest service organization in the world, an institution begun in 1905 by Paul Harris and 3 other businessmen in Chicago. Today, Rotarians number 1.2 million members in 34,000 clubs in more than 200 countries. The Lakeland Rotary Club was founded in 1918, the 6th club in Florida. For the past 102 years, this club has served this community and others throughout the world, growing in its current membership to near 200, one of the largest in the state. You are joining a club with a proud tradition and a continuing commitment to service above self. We invite you to get to know all of our members through fellowship and service and have fun while doing it. You will be provided the opportunity to learn about our community through weekly programs and serve on various committees dedicated to Rotary's ideals. Whether you prefer local or international service projects, you will have ample opportunities to serve. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our newest Rotarians. Unmute. Okay, I'm glad to have y'all. And I know it took a little bit longer than normal to get you inducted, but we're glad to have you and hope to get a STARS class started very soon. All right, now we have a special award. This is presented by Dorsey, and because he was going to be on the road, we got that by video. And Chuck, if you can just cue that up.
Today I have the honor of presenting.
It's not showing.
To someone outside of our Rotary Club, the Lakeland Rotary Club.
Chuck, it's not showing.
Test was created in 1932 by Rotarian Herbert J. Taylor to help a nearly bankrupt Club Aluminum Company of Chicago. It became the moral compass by which they conducted business. It was adopted by Rotary International in 1943, the year I was born. And then in 1955, Mr. Taylor gave the copyrights to Rotary International. And most of us as Rotarians know 4 items. 1, is it truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Today, 83 years later, it continues to define how a business should operate. For many of us, it has also become the moral compass by which we conduct our personal lives. It continues to say, this individual is a person of integrity. Well, each year, our Rotary Club selects someone within our club, without in the community, but outside of our club. Today, it's my privilege to present the community recipient of the 4-way test award. I'm not going to give you a lot of background because when this name is mentioned, you'll immediately know all about this person. But I'm just very honored. I've known this person a long time, and all I'm going to do is say his name. Our esteemed Sheriff, Grady Judd. Congratulations.
Okay, I'm going to try to get my screen
Congratulations,
share
Grady.
back. Yes.
Have a verbal password put on your account.
I'm sorry for the delay, y'all. Just had, yeah.
They're the ones telling us.
Driving it, yes.
Yeah. Did you meet everyone? Okay.
Yes, and I don't know if
Congratulations,
we get
Sheriff
the
Judd. We are
authorization
so
tonight.
proud of you, and the Lakeland Rotary Club appreciates you. Being a Rotarian yourself, you're probably aware that the four-way test award is the highest award presented to someone in our community, and it exemplifies somebody that lives by the four-way test. Chuck or Beth, could y'all mute everyone? We're getting some background noise.
Got it.
I'm still, okay, great. All right, and before we introduce Sheriff Judd for our program, Gwinnell, I know you have known our sheriff for a long time, so I wanted you just to add a little bit about your personal knowledge about how our sheriff lives by this four-way test.
Yes, I've known him. I've actually worked directly for him for the majority of my career, and he's more family to me than he is sheriff. So, but he started out very early in his career, started out as a civilian, a dispatcher, and worked his way up through the ranks. And he knew as a small child that he wanted to be sheriff. He always dreamed of being sheriff. 2004, Polk County overwhelmingly elected him to serve as their sheriff. And I'm excited to say that this past Friday, because he did not have any opposition in the election, he won the election and will be our sheriff for the next 4 years as well.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Sheriff Judd has quite a bit of education. He has his master's degree. He also graduated from the FBI National Academy, along with several other prestigious academies. He's taught at the college and university level here locally. He is currently serving as the immediate past president of the Major County Sheriffs of America. And he realizes that having proper priorities in place is important to success. And so he puts God first in everything. And his family is also a priority to him. But also he is an advocate for the men and women of the Sheriff's Office. And he's been married to Marissa, his wife, of 47 years, and he has 2 grown sons and 13 grandchildren. And the daughter he never wanted, but he kind of got stuck with. So I'm going to take that joke before he tells everyone that. Consider him as a 4-way test recipient. I think it's important to understand that he does embody all of these traits. And is it the truth? He's known as America's plain talking sheriff, and he'll always tell it like it is. He's fair to all concerned. He is integrity is first in everything, and he's an advocate for the most vulnerable of people in our society. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? He understands that you have to have relationships built before times of crisis. And so he has developed and maintained and fostered strong relationships in our community. And I think we as citizens of Polk County have benefited from that. And then also, will it be beneficial to all concerned? He's always looking at the quality of life here in Polk County and what influence that he can have on our society, and not just really Polk County, but he really feels that quality of life across our nation is important, and he has used his influence at the national level to help with that too. So I'm proud to introduce Sheriff Judd, and proud that he is the recipient of this award.
Yes, thank you so much. If you'll unmute everybody and let's show him our appreciation.
When I picked up the mail at 5:30.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, if you have anything else to say to introduce him, have at it, Gwinnell, and if not, we'll just welcome Sheriff Judd.
Well, welcome to Sheriff Judd. I think I've said enough. Taken enough.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You know, I have to pay her a lot of money to say nice things. Gwinnell is very special to me. She makes a positive difference in our organization every day because she is in charge of all of our policies and practices and our research, and as a result, she makes sure that we stay on the cutting edge every day. You know, normally I have a speech planned, and I'm just so overwhelmed by this award, which was a total surprise to me. I want to tell you how much I enjoy being first a Christian and serving God and serving the community and having a wonderful family, but most importantly, I want to make a positive difference for all the people in our community every day. I believe that God-fearing people get it right. And so that's just the mantra from which I come. So receiving this award from Rotary, and I am a Rotarian, and I've been a Rotarian since 1994, and I'm a Paul Harris Fellow. It means so very, very much to me. So with that said, I thought rather than me giving you one of my many speeches that I have prepared, or my aide Gwinnell prepared back in the day and we updated it, or my aide Alicia prepared, then I thought I would just open up to the floor and say, what do you want to hear about? Obviously, we're in some tumultuous times between COVID and the horrible shooting of George Floyd up in Minneapolis. So at the end of the day, with all of the questions and the uncertainty swirling around, I thought I'd open it up to make sure that I answered the questions you're interested in, as opposed to me giving a speech and maybe not answering or giving you any information that ties in with what you're concerned about today. So it's always a risk when you open up the floor to questions, but hey, I'm up for it, and I'll do my best to tell you the answer, and I feel more comfortable doing it this week than I did last week because I've already been elected. So what are the questions? And
Sheriff Judd, this is Joel Ivey, and thank you for your service, sir.
Sure.
So there's a task force in Lakeland that's looking at the improvements that we can make and things that we can institute. I mean, if you're, king for the day, so to speak, and you had one or two things that you'd like to see put on that kind of an agenda, what would those be?
Well, thank you very much, Joel. First and foremost, I professionally resent that all law enforcement across this nation has been painted with a brush that was dipped in horrible, horrible ink in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The shooting of, I'm sorry, not the shooting, but the kneeling on George Floyd's neck was unacceptable. It was inappropriate. It didn't comply with any training. And that was a horrible, horrible event, and there's not the appropriate words to express that. But just as concerning to me, I can't say more concerning, but just as concerning was the cavalier attitude, not only of the police officer kneeling on his neck, but also the cavalier attitude of the other police officers there. That's a systemic problem. That is a culture problem. I don't know if it's the culture of the police department, of the city, of the community. I don't know if it's a culture problem created by just the district he worked in or the shift that those guys worked on. But the reality of it is, when I look at what's occurring in Polk County, then I would tell you that there's always room for improvement. But the most important thing we can do is have relationships and trust, and you don't get trust until you first give trust. If I was sitting on a commission, the first thing I would be concerned with, and I would ask my colleagues, is how active are we in the community? Does the community, what I call the power players, do they have the cell phone? Do they have the cell phone number of the chief and the deputy chiefs? Do the people who make a positive difference, do the ministers in the community, do the faith leaders in the community have the phone number, so if an issue or a question arises, that we can answer that at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night when the offices are closed? I would ask, do you have professional accreditations? You see, all of this stuff you see on national news not once says, is the agency accredited? There are two professional accreditation agencies for law enforcement in Florida. It's a Florida accreditation, and it's CALEA, that Commission on Accreditation, which is a national accreditation. Gwinnell is in charge of those for me. But I find out that in Minnesota, there is zero, not one police agency in all of Minnesota that has that national accreditation. And there is not a state accreditation. So all law enforcement agencies aren't created equal. So I would say on a national level, do you have a state accrediting body? Do you have are you a member of the national accrediting body? Do you have a criminal justice standards and training unit? See, we have to be certified and given a certificate of completion before we can act as a law enforcement officer. In Florida, that meets state standards. So I would start at a national level, then I would come to a state level, then I would come to the local level as a local member. And how are your interactions? How is your communications? What do you do? Do you live up to best practices? Do you have it inculcated in your policy and your training and your follow-up of how you treat people and what you do in the event of a resisting arrest? Now, one of the common denominators people don't want to talk about is that no matter how horrific the conduct may be by a law enforcement officer, and we've seen some examples where the police officer was absolutely unequivocally wrong, every one of them started with the person not obeying the command of the law enforcement officer and or resisting the arrest. What we also have to do is have an open conversation in every community across this nation that when a law enforcement officer gives you a direction or commands you to be arrested, even if you think you're wrong, arguing that on the side of the street ends up with no winners. There's always a way to undo it. If the arrest is inappropriate, we can undo it. If the law enforcement officer treated you inappropriate, they should be held accountable. And therein lies the problem. At the sheriff's office, I hold people accountable that act inappropriately. We do thorough research, thorough investigations on every complaint, no matter how the complaint comes in, even the anonymous complaints. And as a result, if my folks are wrong, we counsel, we coach, we reprimand, we retrain. Sometimes we suspend them, and if none of that is appropriate, depending on the conduct, we fire them. Had that police officer in Minneapolis worked for me, he would have been locked up in jail before dark that day by me. So at the end of the day, as a community group, the takeaways are, let's look at all the things we're doing right, none of which are getting into the national news right now, or any news. Let's look at what we're doing right. Let's look at where we're weak or where we're not getting the job done. And then let's craft a path to improve and put policies, practices, and training in place to make sure that we always understand our customer, the community, is very important. And we need, as I tell everybody that when they come to work here on day one, treat people the way you'd want your mama treated. Talk to people like you'd want your mama talked to. And if you don't do that, then you just can't stay with the sheriff's office here. Now, at the same time, I explained to them that if somebody has to be arrested, then you have the right to arrest them and use whatever minimum force is necessary to take them into custody. And sometimes minimum force is not very minimum, depending on the level of resistance. I hope that's given you a lot of direction of what we do and what needs to be done and the state of this event as I see it today. A lot of agencies turn inward. Look at of the high-profile events of the questionable or bad conduct that's being talked about today. Only 2 of the many, many, many agencies are not unionized. We find that unions protect bad cops. Unions protect the jobs of bad cops. So we also need to say, what if you have a police union in your agency? Is it working for the community or is it protecting bad cops?
Okay, Sheriff Judd, we've got several questions coming in on chat, so I'm just going to kind of read them. There's no particular order to these. Sure. From Dan and Rebecca Borneman, what do you do locally when the riots break out to protect our community? And what are your solutions for police nationwide to train and help the division that we're seeing in our country? Now, those are two kind of a lot of ground to cover there.
Sure. First and foremost, you can't build relationships or trust in the middle of a riot. The people that are having the largest problems across the nation cannot have created a trust and built relationships and have the outcomes that they're having right now. And you have to give trust before you receive trust. And what I've explained over and over to our community is protesting and demonstrating is a First Amendment right. And we need to support those that want to protest and demonstrate and grieve their government's conduct publicly. We need to support that. People have a right to that. On the other hand, people do not have a right to throw rocks and bottles and loot and burn and steal and rob. And I have made my position very clear. In fact, the last time, I think week before last, when during these protests, the one large protest we had here deteriorated because of some what I call agitators. By the way, during the next week, the police department in Lakeland and the sheriff's deputies working together arrested 5 people. Of the 5 of them, 3 were white, 1 was Latino, and only 1 was African American. So we're not talking African American that was the agitators in this particular event. But what I've explained clearly and unequivocally, I will help you march. I will block off roads for you to have a marching parade. I will ensure your safety and security so that you can protest loud. But the first time you start looting, robbing, and stealing, that's not working in this county. We're not standing by and watching that happen. We are going to lock you up in jail before quick if you do that. And if we have to use chemical agent or pepper spray in order to get you under control, we'll do that. If we have to wrestle you to the ground and put handcuffs on you, we will do that. You're not going to be violent. You're not going to hurt our people in this community, and you're not going to tear up our stuff. And quite frankly, I can tell you that with all the protests, and there have been dozens of them in this county, they've been beautiful and wonderful. And the community's been beautiful and wonderful. And we've put the agitators on notice. We're not accepting that. And we've asked the protesters and those coordinating protests, help us out. If you see an agitator or you see someone trying to stir up the crowd and take the focus off of your legitimate protest and demonstration, let us know so we can get them out of your crowd so we don't lose the message that you're trying to send. And that has worked every time in this community.
Thank you. Another question, you touched on this a little bit about the unions for the officers, but this is along those lines. Do you think the leadership of agencies around the country are hamstrung when it comes to getting rid of bad apples on their forces?
Let me quote my chief of staff, Steve Lester. He went to one of the training academies with a gentleman that ended up the superintendent of the Chicago police. And this was about 3 superintendents ago. And they were at an International Association of Chiefs of Police meeting. And he was talking to Steve, and he said, Steve, the last 12 police officers I've fired for criminal violations of the law, the public review boards have made me bring them back.
Oh.
So I can tell you clearly and unequivocally A sheriff has a unique opportunity. I am elected and I am directly your representative. I'm not just the sheriff of the county. I am your representative in local law enforcement, and I'm the chief law enforcement officer of the county. I have as much authority in downtown Lakeland as I have in the outside of the city of Lakeland. So I've got a unique perspective and ability, union or no union. The union can make me, if I had one, I don't have one. I try to treat people so well and listen to their problems that they don't want one, and so far we're successful with that. The union can grieve a sheriff, and the sheriff may have to leave him on the payroll, but the union can't force the sheriff to give them arrest authority. So at the end of the day, the sheriff, the elected sheriff, has a lot more authority than the typical police chief around this country. Around this country, they have binding arbitration, and the chief can fire you, and the union can take you through the gauntlet with the lawyers and end up forcing you to take that bad cop back. One reason we don't have that problem here is because they can't force me to take someone back that violates the law or has an anger management problem or that doesn't go along with the policies and procedures or that doesn't interact well with the community. So I have an advantage here. So whenever I listen to people in the community, whenever I look at and create the policies and practices, it's based upon what is in the best interest of the community. And I recruit the very best, I provide the very best training, and then retraining and retraining and retraining. I support my men when they're right, but when they're wrong, they are held fully accountable immediately. And that's the difference. I can show you big police agencies all over this country that are absolute total train wrecks. And I understand completely the frustration of the community that we're seeing today.
Okay. All right. Another question. What is your position on the use of body cams for the Sheriff's Department in Polk County?
I'm absolutely against body cameras. Now, there are times when I wish that I had one, but here's my basic philosophy, and I want you to hear my heart on this. Body cameras became popular because people didn't trust their law enforcement officers. And that I understand that completely. But here's what I also understand, that when you put a body camera on a law enforcement officer, on a police officer, it faces you. It doesn't face me as the law enforcement officer, number one. Number two, I am a big privacy wonk. I believe everybody has the right to privacy. When the government puts cameras on law enforcement officers, then you no longer have a private life when you interact with us. Because when you have a burglary at your home or at your business, when we come to your home, then we the government have recorded everything on the inside of your house. So when we're there working the burglary because you're the victim of a burglary, the government now has footage of the inside of your house. When you call us to your house because you're having trouble with your 15-year-old daughter or your 13-year-old son, and you're embarrassed and you're reaching out to us for help and direction, you don't want the world to be able to see that. But we've got a recording of it. If you walk up to us on the street and said, I've got this horrible problem at home. I'm so embarrassed. I'm afraid my child's going down the wrong path. He's involved with the wrong people, and I just need some help. We've recorded that. It's not private anymore. Today, we have thousands of private conversations every day with men and women of this community who have significant and serious family issues that they don't want on social media. So when you get past the privacy issues, then it comes down to law enforcement officers give people a lot of breaks. but you never see it. You never see the law enforcement officer that says, so you don't have your license. It's suspended for failure to pay your insurance. Well, we'll let your girlfriend drive, but don't get behind the wheel of a car and drive until you get it. When you put all that on tape, when you start having a record of all those criminal violations, our latitude goes out the window. Our arrest will go up because we're afraid not to take action because we have evidence recorded of criminal conduct. People don't think about the downside to that. Let me talk from a tax perspective. It is a multi-million-dollar a year operation. Let me give you an example. You take 800 police officers or deputies and you put a body camera on them with a 40-hour work week. And you only have a 90-day retention because that's the minimum you can have. You have to record 432,000 hours of communication. You have to store it. There's public records. You have to be able to bring it forth. You have to be able to research it and bring it forth. You have to be able to edit it for people that shouldn't be in it. So it's not just that we see what occurs. Then for the criminal cases, then the public defender and the state attorney has to go through every moment of this tape. And then everybody can make a public records request. And in this world of social media, you can come and get all of this record. If you're a naysayer or a hater, blend it together and put it out on social media of perfectly legal, legitimate actions and portray us as racist, as thugs, as criminals. And quite frankly, we have our dissenters because people don't like to be arrested. I could go on for about another hour and a half, but I think you get the idea of why body cameras have curb appeal right now. And people who don't understand the unintended consequences in the hands of people that don't handle it appropriately, and this is a public record state, that your most private personal life can be out on social media tonight.
Okay, thank you. A comment, Sheriff, from Vincent Jones. Congratulations on being reelected Sheriff and receiving the 4-Way Test Award. Thanks for being proactive in implementing the Sheriff's Advocacy Council that helps bridge the gap with citizens of the community and law enforcement. The community knows that when Sheriff's Office shows up, they will be treated fairly and receive help. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Sheriff's Advisory Council?
Sure. When I was first elected sheriff, I promised and pledged during the election that I would have a community committee that was diverse in economics, that was diverse in geography, and that was diverse by race, age, and sex. And what occurs is they serve a 1-year term as a sheriff's advisory member, then they go into the alumni, where they take a deep dive into the sheriff's office, every aspect of the sheriff's office, where we send them out with homework assignments to ride in patrol cars, to go to book-in, to sit in communications and listen to 911 calls, and then to report back to me from outside of my bubble, but from the world of our community. What do we do good? What are we doing right? What's weak? What do we need to improve upon? And so I listen to a cross-section of our community. And then when they go into the alumni, they are not finished. Then they're alumni forevermore, and I call them up from time to time, or may call them in order to give me advice on what's happening in our community. They become my ambassadors all throughout the community. Gwinnell was my aide when we started this, and she is the one with me, and I take the credit, and she did the work. She crafted this program that is hugely successful today. But I think it's important to sit down and listen to the community. And that's why we have the Sheriff's Advisory Council. And Vince agreed to be one of my members, for which I'm grateful. And he's brought a lot of wisdom, law enforcement experience from the federal level, ideas and feedback to us. And it's just worked very well.
Wonderful. Thank you. And a comment from Julie. There were no riots in our community, only protest. And I think that's a great credit to your department, Sheriff, and our police department too. This one may be too technical. I don't know. We've just got a moment left. How do you train to restrict chokeholds? Did the officer in Atlanta who shot the fleeing young man have another alternative as far as where he might have shot the victim?
Sure.
Is that, you may understand that question better than I do.
Okay. First off, part of the problem with news reports is you're only getting a 1.5-minute segment of a horrific event. And first and foremost, fights are not pretty. And you can't make them pretty. When somebody resists you, the fight's ugly. I can't tell you. Obviously, you could tell from that particular Atlanta event that there was a nasty, ugly fight, and that guy was throwing the 2 police officers around like rag dolls. But I'm not going to sit here and justify what he did, because I don't know all of what happened and all of what he perceived at that moment in time. I can just tell you it was very bad. But it was a horrible event. But once again, whenever we're looking at chokeholds, and it's one of the popular things is eliminate chokeholds. Let me tell you from the bottom of my heart, I've been a street cop. I've been in fights back in the day when we didn't have backup. I've been in fights trying to take people in custody when it was painfully evident to me this guy was going to beat me into the ground. I've used chokeholds, but there's a way to use it appropriately, and there's a time to use it. You don't use a chokehold unless and until you think, I'm beat, I'm done, he's got the best of me, he's got the ability to get my gun and kill me. When it gets to the point that you're fighting for your life, not taking someone in custody, a chokehold is not a bad thing. But with a chokehold, you got to know when to turn it loose. But a chokehold appropriately cutting off the wind of someone stops the fight. And it stops the fight without injury if you do it right. However, they're dangerous. They should never, ever, ever be used unless you're at the point that you're going to lose your life. So at the end of the day, these all go into 15-second sound bites that the average person says, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Why would you want to choke anybody? Well, we don't. We don't want to choke anybody. But if somebody comes into your house tonight, they break into your house tonight and they start fighting with you. They don't have a gun, but you got a gun on the counter and they're beating you into the ground, and you can't get to your gun, but they're about to get to your gun, and a chokehold will stop them. Are you going to use it to save your life? Under those circumstances alone, should it be appropriate, and it's got to be appropriately trained, and you've got to know when not to use it. What we saw in Minneapolis was not, I underscore, not anywhere near legal, right, proper. Nothing we saw there would allow that. First and foremost, they had 4 guys there. You don't need a chokehold if you got 4 guys. You got 1 for each arm, 1 for each leg. You wrestle the guy down, you put handcuffs on him. But to say never, never, never is not appropriate.
Okay, and we're running out of time. I'll give you one last question, end on a positive note from Mark Hutek. What is the best way for the community to show appreciation to our law enforcement agencies during these difficult times?
Well, thank you very much. And the reality is they do every day. But if you see a law enforcement officer in a restaurant and on the side of the road, stop them and tell them that you just appreciate them. That's all you need to do. Just say, look, we know the vision is really bad now, but we also know that 99 and 9/10% of you guys and gals are doing a really good job under really tough circumstances. Just thank them. That's all they need. And they really don't expect that in this hostile environment. But that'll do.
Yeah, well, we do appreciate you and what y'all do on a daily basis. So if you can unmute everybody and let's show the sheriff our appreciation for his time today. Thank you.
I love y'all. Appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you for keeping us safe.
Thank you.
Great program. We had great attendance today, too. I think that might have been our record, 101. All right, next week's program is Catapult. Our presenter is the Executive Director of Catapult, Christina Graham. So I hope you'll come back and hear her. And we'll thank our guests and visiting Rotarians. I don't know if Nicholas made it to the call or not, but if you did, well, welcome Nicholas, Belinda, and Deborah, and Mike, the visiting Rotarian. I hope you made it. Come back to see us. And our weekly quote is from an unknown law enforcement officer. I hunt the evil you pretend doesn't exist. And we are adjourned. Have a great week. See you next Tuesday. Bye.
Bye.